There comes a moment in every deep connection where words stop mattering and energy speaks. You can feel it, that silent shift when someone who once ran from closeness starts leaning into it. That's when you know something sacred is happening. When an avoidant truly loves only you, they don't say it the way you expect. They say it through the courage to stay. They say it through the trembling moments when their instinct screams, "Run!" and they choose instead to remain. Love for them is not a feeling. It's a battle between the old self that survived through distance and the new self that's learning to live through intimacy. They're fighting ghosts, the ghosts of abandonment, the echoes of rejection, the haunting memory that says closeness equals danger. Ibraki, and then you arrive. You, the one who doesn't chase, but also doesn't leave. You, the one who sees their silence not as rejection, but as fear disguised as strength. You, the one whose energy whispers, "You're safe now." That's when transformation begins. They start breaking their own rules, the ones that once protected them, but now imprison them. They start texting back sooner. They start opening up about the things they used to hide. And sometimes they'll even admit, in the quietest of ways, that they missed you. Not because they're weak, but because your presence has become their peace. Understand this. When an avoidant truly loves, it's not impulsive, it's sacred. They've studied every inch of their fear before taking one step closer to you. They've tested your energy, your patience, your authenticity, and when they finally choose you, it's not a whim, it's a vow. Their love might not look like a movie. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it's steady, it's slow, it's rooted in trust. It's the kind of love that grows not through grand gestures, but through quiet consistency, through showing up after disappearing, through saying, "I don't know how to love perfectly, but I want to try with you." Ibraki. And that's where your purpose appears. Because the moment you stop trying to fix them and start holding space for them, you become the bridge between fear and freedom. Your patience becomes the mirror that teaches them what love actually feels like. You become the safe place they never had, and the person they didn't know they were praying for. So, when an avoidant truly loves only you, it's not about what they say, it's about what they risk. They risk their comfort, they risk their solitude, they risk everything they once believed kept them safe, because your soul made them feel something they never thought they could. They're not running anymore. They're choosing you again and again, even when it terrifies them. And that's the highest form of love. Not when it's easy, not when it's convenient, but when someone whose nature was to flee finally decides to stay. That's when you know this love is not ordinary, it's divine. Because only something divine could make the guarded heart open, and the lonely soul finally whisper, "Ibrak, I'm home." They begin to break their own rules, the invisible laws they created to protect their heart from ever being hurt again. For the avoidant, rules are safety. They're not just boundaries, they're shields forged from years of disappointment, betrayal, or emotional overwhelm. Every rule is a survival mechanism. Don't get too close, don't depend on anyone, don't show your feelings. These rules were built not out of arrogance, but out of pain. When they were younger, someone might have made them feel that love equals loss, that intimacy equals danger. So they decided, "I'll never let that happen again." And they lived by those words like a creed. They built their identity around distance, not because they don't feel deeply, but because they feel too deeply and they've never learned how to handle that depth safely. But when an avoidant truly begins to love, something extraordinary happens. Love has a way of bending even the strongest defenses. It doesn't happen all at once. It's gradual, almost imperceptible. You'll notice the small things first. The person who once avoided eye contact begins holding your gaze a second longer. The one who used to deflect emotional conversations now listens, even if silently. They may still retreat, but they return faster. Their patterns start to change. The old rules start to soften. It's as if love whispers to them, "You don't need those walls with this person." And that whisper, over time, becomes louder than their fear. Breaking their own rules doesn't mean they stop being avoidant overnight. It means they're beginning to trust. It means they're starting to question the beliefs that once defined their emotional life. When they used to say, "I don't do relationships," suddenly they're in one. When they said, "I don't need anyone," They start realizing they miss you. When they said, "I'll never be vulnerable," they catch themselves sharing something personal, something raw. And that moment of openness is a miracle for them because it's not natural, it's not comfortable, it's earned. Love makes them want to rewrite the old script. But to rewrite it, they must confront the old pain. Every time they let you in a little more, they're silently confronting every voice that ever told them love isn't safe. They're saying, maybe this time is different. Maybe I don't have to run. That's not weakness. That's growth. That's bravery. Because for someone who's lived behind emotional armor, breaking their own rules feels like stepping into fire. And yet they do it. Not because you forced them, but because something in your presence makes them believe they can survive closeness. What most people don't see is the internal storm that rages beneath this process. Their logical mind tells them, don't do this. You'll get hurt again. Their heart whispers, but this feels right. It's a battle between fear and desire, between past and possibility. And when they start choosing connection over comfort, that's love in its purest form. It's not impulsive. It's intentional. It's the result of countless inner battles that you may never even see. You might not realize it, but every time they say yes when they used to say no, every time they open up when they used to shut down, it's a victory. It's their soul saying, you matter more than my fear. They may still pull away sometimes, but they always return, and that's the proof. Because love for them isn't easy, it's transformation. They are unlearning the need to hide. They are breaking a lifelong pattern for the sake of something that finally feels real. And the most beautiful part is, they're not doing it to impress you. They're doing it because your love awakens something sacred within them, the desire to be free. And in choosing to break their rules, they're choosing something far greater than comfort. They're choosing you. They show up even when it's hard. For someone with an avoidant attachment, showing up is one of the hardest things they can do. It's not because they don't care, and it's not because they don't feel love. It's because showing up requires emotional exposure. It demands consistency, vulnerability, and a willingness to stay when every instinct inside them says, protect yourself, leave before you get hurt. But when an avoidant truly loves you, something within them begins to shift. They start to realize that love isn't supposed to be about safety, it's about truth. And the truth is, even though being close terrifies them, being without you feels worse. This is the defining moment where love begins to outweigh fear. They start to show up, not perfectly, not all at once, but intentionally. They'll come back after arguments, even if it takes them time to process. They'll return after disappearing, not out of guilt, but out of longing. And when they do, that's their version of saying, you matter more than my comfort zone. For an avoidant, that is love in action. While others might express affection through words or grand gestures, avoidants express love through small acts of presence. It's in the way they make an effort to call, to listen, or to simply exist beside you, when their natural response used to be withdrawal. What many people misunderstand about avoidance is that their distance isn't apathy, it's protection. Their whole life, they've associated closeness with pain, so staying detached became their survival strategy. But love has a way of disrupting those defenses. When they meet someone who offers understanding instead of judgment, patience instead of pressure, their nervous system begins to relax. It's subtle, but over time it changes everything. They start to realize they can show up and not lose themselves in the process. They begin to see that connection doesn't have to mean captivity. Showing up for an avoidant means facing their greatest fear, the fear of needing someone. It means confronting the voice that tells them, if you rely on someone, you'll be disappointed. But when love becomes real, they begin to test that belief. They test it by letting you in. They test it by calling when they feel overwhelmed instead of shutting down. They test it by trusting that your presence won't suffocate them, but rather soothe them. Every moment they choose connection over avoidance, they are rewiring their own emotional DNA. That's not just love. That's transformation happening in real time. You'll see it in their effort. Maybe they won't say I love you as easily as others, but they'll make sure you're okay after a fight. They'll remember what you said weeks ago and quietly act on it. They'll sit beside you in silence when words fail, For them, that's showing up. It's love expressed through effort, through presence, through the willingness to remain connected, even when it's uncomfortable. And it's often those small, quiet moments that carry the most weight. There's a spiritual dimension to this kind of love. It's not just about relationships, it's about healing old patterns. The avoidant, who once believed they were safer alone, begins to learn the deeper truth, that growth happens through connection, not isolation. Every time they stay, they're breaking a generational cycle of emotional withdrawal. They're choosing healing over habit. That choice might seem simple, but it's monumental. And when they do show up, it's not out of obligation. It's because they've started to understand that love is not something to be feared. It's something to be honored. They realize that staying isn't weakness, it's power. Because it takes more strength to stay open when you're afraid than to shut down and walk away. So when an avoidant truly loves only you, you'll know it not by how easily they love, but by how courageously they return, again and again, choosing presence over distance, love over fear, and growth over the safety of silence. They let you into their private world, the one they've kept hidden from everyone, sometimes even from themselves. For an avoidant, that private world is sacred territory. It's where their real emotions live, the fears, the memories, the unhealed wounds they've never shared. It's a place built behind walls of independence and control, because showing that side once led to pain. In their past, every time they opened up, someone might have misused their trust, misunderstood their silence, or rejected their truth. So they learned to stay guarded. To survive, they became their own confidant, their own protector, their own emotional island. But when they meet someone who feels different, someone whose energy feels safe, the fortress begins to crack. Letting you in doesn't happen dramatically. It happens in fragments. It starts with a story they never told anyone before, a glimpse of a childhood moment, or a confession about what scares them most. It might even be as small as them saying, "I missed you," when that kind of admission feels foreign. Each small reveal is a test, a way of asking silently, "Can I trust you with this part of me?" Because to the avoidant, vulnerability is exposure. And exposure has always equaled danger. But when they love you, they start to see vulnerability differently. It's no longer a threat, it's a bridge. The moment they begin to share their inner world is the moment they start to heal. Because love, real love, invites authenticity. You can't heal in isolation. You can only heal in the presence of safety. And your presence, your calm, your acceptance become that safety for them. You don't rush them. You don't demand that they open up faster. You give them the space to reveal themselves at their own pace. That patience is what builds trust. And trust is the only currency that matters to an avoidant. Once they feel it, once they know that their truth won't scare you away, they start giving you access to the parts of themselves they never thought anyone would see. You'll notice it in how their energy changes. They'll start looking you in the eye more often. Their tone softens. The way they listen becomes more attentive. They begin to mirror your emotional presence because now you've entered their world not as a threat, but as an ally. And in that space, they don't need to perform. They don't need to be strong all the time. They can finally breathe. That's what love does. It gives permission to exhale. When they let you in, it's not just about words. It's about access. You're being invited into their inner sanctuary, a place they've kept locked for years. You'll begin to see the small things that reveal how deep it goes. They'll introduce you to their routines, their favorite quiet places, maybe even people from their past. They'll start sharing their thoughts in real time, not days later after they've filtered every feeling. They'll allow you to see them in their moments of uncertainty. When they're tired, sad, anxious, or lost, that's when you know the connection is real, because avoidants don't let just anyone see them unguarded. They only do it for the one who makes them feel seen without judgment. This act of letting you in is sacred. It's not casual and it's not temporary. It's a declaration, silent but profound. It says, you are different, you're safe, you're mine. And it's in that trust that true love reveals itself. They begin to realize that being loved doesn't mean losing control. It means finding balance. They learn that closeness isn't suffocation, it's belonging. And as they open up more, they start to experience something they've never known before. Peace. Because for the first time, they're not pretending. They're not performing. They're simply being with you. And when they let you into that private world, understand the magnitude of what you've been given. You're not just someone they like. You've become the person they trust enough to be real with. That's not ordinary. That's love in its highest form. Love that risks everything to finally be known. They allow themselves to need you. And for an avoidant, that is one of the most profound transformations love can create. Needing someone has always been their deepest fear. It represents vulnerability, dependence, and the possibility of pain. To need someone means handing over a piece of control. And for someone who's spent a lifetime depending only on themselves, that feels like surrender. Their independence has been their identity, their armor. It's what made them feel safe in a world that once taught them love can be unreliable. So they built a life that required no one. They became strong, self-sufficient, capable, and proud of their emotional solitude. But love, real love, has a way of humbling even the most guarded soul. When an avoidant begins to truly love, something inside them starts to soften. They find themselves thinking about you even when they don't mean to. They start craving your presence, your energy, your voice, not because they can't live without it, but because it makes life richer. They begin to notice that the moments they feel most alive are the ones shared with you. That realization is both beautiful and terrifying to them, because suddenly they feel a pull toward connection, the very thing they've spent years resisting. For them, needing you isn't about weakness. It's about surrendering to truth. They may not express it directly. They might never say, "I need you," but you'll feel it. You'll feel it in the way they reach out after days of silence, or how they linger a little longer in your presence. You'll notice it when they open up about something painful, not because they want advice, but because they want you to know. That's their way of saying, you matter. You have a place in my inner world. It's subtle, but it's powerful, because every step toward emotional reliance is a step away from fear. To allow themselves to need you, they must first rewrite an old story, the story that told them needing anyone leads to disappointment. They're learning that depending on someone doesn't mean losing themselves. It means expanding who they are. They begin to understand that real strength isn't about isolation. It's about interdependence. It's about two people walking their individual paths while choosing to lean on each other when life gets heavy. That lesson doesn't come easily to them. It's earned through patience, trust, and the quiet safety of your consistency. You become their emotional anchor, not because you demand to be, but because you prove time and time again that you're steady. When they see that you don't weaponize their vulnerability, that you don't judge their silence or punish their distance, they begin to relax. Their nervous system, once wired for defense, starts to open. And in that opening, they experience something new, the relief of being supported. It's not that they can't stand on their own anymore. It's that they don't want to always have to. They finally see the beauty in letting someone share the load. It's a divine kind of love, the kind that teaches them that need can coexist with power. They realize that love isn't about losing autonomy. It's about sharing it. It's about knowing they can still be independent, but now they don't have to face everything alone. This shift is subtle but life-changing. The once self-contained soul starts to reach out more. They begin to say things like, "I missed you," or "I'm glad you're here." Words that once felt impossible now flow naturally, because love has taught them that needing you doesn't diminish their strength. It deepens it. When they allow themselves to need you, it's not dependency. It's trust manifested. It's the moment their walls become windows, and you can finally see the person underneath. Tender, open, human. They begin to understand that love isn't about control. It's about connection. And in allowing themselves to need you, they're not giving up their freedom. They're finally experiencing what true freedom feels like. The freedom to love without fear. The freedom to be fully seen and still chosen. They mirror your energy and emotional safety. Because love, for the avoidant, isn't taught through words. It's learned through experience. They don't trust easily, not because they want to be difficult, but because trust has to be felt in their body before it can be believed in their mind. They've lived most of their life expecting love to come with conditions, that if they showed too much, felt too much, or needed too much, they would be abandoned. So when they meet someone who radiates calm, steadiness, and compassion instead of chaos or pressure, something begins to shift deep within them. They start to mirror that energy, almost unconsciously, because it feels safe. Safety is the soil where love can finally grow for them. You become their emotional compass. Your presence shows them that connection doesn't have to mean conflict. They begin to learn that emotions don't have to be explosive to be real, that vulnerability doesn't equal rejection, and that love can exist without control. This is when the real transformation begins. When they stop reacting from fear and start responding from trust. They notice how you handle moments of tension, how you stay grounded instead of escalating, how you listen instead of attacking, how you love instead of withdrawing. And slowly, their nervous system starts to rewire itself through your consistency. What used to trigger them into retreat now invites them to stay. This mirroring is not imitation, it's resonance. It's their way of aligning with the emotional frequency you create. When you model patience, they begin to soften. When you communicate openly, they start to find their words. When you remain calm during distance, they realize they don't have to run to protect themselves. They begin to learn love through your example, not through explanation. Because the avoidant doesn't open from demands or persuasion, they open from emotional safety. Your energy teaches them that closeness doesn't mean chaos. It can mean peace. You might not see it right away, but every time they come back after pulling away, every time they choose to talk instead of shutting down, they're mirroring the space you've created. They're learning that connection doesn't have to mean losing control. It can mean mutual grounding. And when they start to mirror you, that's when you'll know. They trust you enough to adapt. Their soul recognizes yours as a safe rhythm to follow. In the beginning, they may test that safety. They might distance themselves just to see if your calm holds. They might stay quiet, wondering if you'll chase or attack. But when you stay steady, not cold, not clingy, just balanced, something sacred happens. They begin to associate love with serenity, and in that calm, they find a version of themselves they've never known before. They start to feel safe in connection rather than in solitude. That's how you know love is transforming them. Not by how much they say, but by how much they start to reflect your peace back to you. Mirroring emotional safety is one of the most powerful signs of true love for the avoidant, because it means their nervous system has stopped seeing you as a threat. It means they're no longer fighting the urge to withdraw. They're choosing to match your openness with their own. This process takes time, but every small act of reflection is a milestone. When they respond with kindness instead of defensiveness, when they begin to comfort you the way you once comforted them, when they start initiating connection instead of waiting for you to do it, that's love in its purest form. In this mirrored energy, both of you grow. They heal through your calm and you grow through their courage. What begins as your example becomes their instinct. And soon the love that once felt one-sided becomes balanced. You'll notice that they start holding space for you, too. Listening, understanding, showing up when you need them most. That's when you'll realize you haven't just taught them love, you've awakened it. Because when an avoidant mirrors your safety, it means they no longer love from fear. They love from freedom. They choose you over comfort, over fear, over the old patterns that once defined their life. For the avoidant, love is never an easy path. It's not something that flows naturally, because their first instinct has always been to protect, not to connect. Their comfort zone is distance, control, independence, emotional self-reliance. But when they truly love you, they begin to realize that comfort without connection feels empty. They see that their solitude, once their sanctuary, has become their prison, and choosing you becomes their rebellion against the fear that's ruled them for years. It's not a decision made lightly, it's a decision born from awakening. When they choose you, it's not about convenience, it's about courage. It's the courage to stay when it would be easier to leave, to feel when it would be safer to numb, to open up when every defense inside screams for withdrawal. You might never see the depth of the internal war they fight, but every time they lean toward you instead of away, they're choosing growth over habit. And that is a sacred act, because for an avoidant, love requires not just emotional strength, but spiritual surrender. It asks them to lay down the armor that once kept them alive and trust that this time, love won't destroy them. Choosing you doesn't mean they stop feeling fear. It means they finally understand that fear and love can coexist. They learn that bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's the decision to move forward in spite of it. So when they stay after conflict, when they open up about their insecurities, when they reach out instead of shutting down, those aren't small gestures. They're victories. Each act of presence is a silent declaration. You are worth the risk. And for someone who's built their life on avoiding emotional risk, that's monumental. The beauty of this choice lies in its intentionality. Most people fall into love. Avoidants walk into it, step by step, deliberately, cautiously, but wholeheartedly once they're in. They don't choose easily, but when they do, they mean it. Because love for them is not just emotion, it's commitment. It's a decision to rewrite their emotional story. And in choosing you, they are saying, I choose to trust again. I choose to believe in connection. I choose to let someone see me. Briefly, you'll notice their choice not in words, but in action. They'll start showing conceit. They'll follow promises. They'll make time for you, even when it's inconvenient. They'll start considering your feelings when making decisions, something they rarely did before. That's how love expresses itself, through them, quietly but powerfully. It's not grand gestures or constant declarations. It's the daily decision to keep choosing you, even when the fear hasn't fully left. And what's truly extraordinary is that their choice changes them. The avoidant who once found safety in solitude now finds strength in connection. They begin to see that love doesn't have to mean losing control. It can mean shared power, shared peace. They start to understand that real intimacy isn't something that threatens their freedom, it expands it. By choosing you, they're choosing to evolve. This kind of love isn't impulsive. It's divine. It's a soul-level recognition that says, out of everyone, you're the one my heart feels safe with. That's why when an avoidant truly loves, they don't look elsewhere. They don't need the chaos or the chase. They've had enough of the superficial. What they crave now is depth, connection that nourishes, presence that feels like home. And you, to them, become that home. So when they choose you, understand the gravity of that decision. They're not choosing out of loneliness or need. They're choosing from awakening. They're choosing the rare person who makes them feel that love doesn't have to hurt, that closeness doesn't have to cost freedom. It's not a fairy tale kind of love. It's a conscious, powerful, hard-earned love. And once they make that choice, it's not fleeting. It's forever. Because the avoidant, when healed by real love, doesn't just stay. They build, they root, they grow. They finally step into the truth that love isn't what breaks them. Love, when it's real, is what sets them free. When you step back and look at the journey of the avoidant heart, from walls to trust, from distance to connection, you begin to see something far deeper than a relationship story. You see transformation. You see what happens when love stops being just a feeling and becomes a force, a divine power that reshapes everything it touches. Because love doesn't just change the avoidant, it reveals them. It pulls out the version of them that was always there beneath the armor, the tender, loyal, fiercely devoted soul that only needed safety to emerge. When an avoidant truly loves only you, it's not about passion that burns fast and fades. It's about devotion that deepens over time. It's about the quiet moments where they choose to stay instead of flee, where they open up instead of shut down, where they let you see the parts of them they never trusted anyone with before. That's the miracle. Not perfection, but presence. Not easy love, but chosen love. And if you've been the one standing in front of that guarded heart, offering patience, peace, and consistency, understand this. Your love is not going unnoticed. You are the catalyst for their healing. You are the mirror that reflects their potential back to them. You are the reason they start to believe that love doesn't have to hurt, that connection doesn't have to mean loss. Because through your calm, your compassion, and your energy, you've shown them that love can be a sanctuary, not a battlefield. That's what true love is meant to do. It doesn't demand, it invites, it doesn't rush, it allows. It doesn't just say, I love you. It shows you're safe with me. That's why when they finally open, when they finally stay, when they finally choose you, it's sacred. It's the culmination of every battle they've fought with themselves, every fear they've faced, every wall they've dared to dismantle. And you were the one who made that possible. So take a moment and breathe in the magnitude of that truth. You're not just in a relationship. You're part of a transformation. You're part of a story where fear turned into faith, where distance turned into devotion, and where a once guarded soul finally learned that love can be trusted. That's not ordinary. That's divine alignment. And as you walk forward together, remember this: the real power of love is not in how it begins, but in how it evolves. It's in the daily choices, the small moments, the quiet forgiveness, and the unwavering decision to grow instead of give up. Because when two souls commit to that kind of love, love that heals, love that honors, love that chooses even through fear, they don't just create a relationship, they create a legacy. So to every listener who's loved someone guarded, to every heart that's been patient with another's healing, and to every avoidant soul learning to love for the first time, this is your reminder: love is not meant to be perfect. It's meant to be real. Thank you for being here, for listening, and for showing up for love, not just in others, but in yourself. Because when you learn to love the avoidant, you're also learning to love the parts of you that once pulled away from closeness. You're learning compassion, resilience, and grace. And that, my friend, is where all true transformation begins. Thank you for your time, your energy, and your openness. May this message remind you that even the most guarded hearts are capable of extraordinary love. And when they finally give it, they give it fully, fiercely, and forever.